this is the last thing for you before we head off to election. Mai Chen was in with the AM show, and they had actually a really interesting conversation, and you guys were asking this, so we found it for you, as to what happens to form a government and how does it go to that point of needing a second election? Constitutional lawyer.
So when might we have a new government to run this country, and who's in charge in the meantime? If no party has an outright majority, then leaders must do deals to form a government, and that means likely Luxon on these numbers, calling Winston, calling Seymour, but with a by-election due on November the 25th, there are fears this thing could drag on until Christmas. Constitutional law expert and barrister Mai Chen is with us this morning to break it down. Good morning.
Morena.
Thank you for being here. So first of all, if there's a hung parliament, which is looking very likely, and no leader has a majority, how long is there a time frame before which they need to form a government?
This is really interesting. So this is how a second election would get called if they couldn't do it. But I wasn't aware of the time frame, but there's a time frame that they have to form a government by, according to our constitution.
Yes, I'm feeling extremely calm. The reason is because we have a very sound constitutional system that caters for all of these issues. And there is a timetable, and it says that within 6 weeks of the return of the writs, which is the 9th of November, Parliament needs to reconvene. It needs to be re-established. So that's by the 21st of December. Now, by then, most of us will be doing our Christmas shopping. Yeah. We will not be thinking about politics. But they have until that time to get themselves sorted. But look, let's be honest. In general, it's taken 5 weeks. Yeah. Once it took 9 weeks. And I think there was a bit of a Winston factor there. That was the first time. And then, of course, there was once when it only took 2 weeks. Yeah. So
what that basically means, I think, Joey, basically, is if they can't form a government by the 21st of December, then probably automatically it goes to a second election. And if it went to a second election, there would be a bloodbath, I think, for some political parties. Maybe ACT would almost disappear because, they have to make this work. If the right has the path, then they have to make this work. So I don't think there's going to be a second election, but we still learn about how it happens, if it happens.
But if they are in a situation where National and ACT together are on 60 seats, for example, and they are desperately wanting that by-election seat from November the 25th
to
get to 61 to form a government without needing Winston, though they might still use him, whatever. That could drag on. Do they, when they meet back in Parliament on the 21st of December, do they have to have a government at that point, or do they just need to sit in the House?
No, they need to have formed a government. It's at the moment, if we have no clear result on election night, there's a caretaker government. So Chris Hipkins will continue with his current government. They need to keep the ship of state on course. It can't be off course. They can't take any major decisions. If there's a crisis, they should consult all sides. But the reality is that is the role of the Governor-General. Dame Cindy Kiro has done an amazing job, but she has a very important job constitutionally. She is the referee or the umpire, neutral when the constitutional chips are down. And if both parties don't get an outright majority, she can't necessarily just go to the one that got the most votes and say, how's about it, form something. It's up to the politicians to talk to each other and form some sort of alignment or coalition. They need to go to her. They need to convince her. They need to give her evidence that they command the confidence and supply in Parliament. Now, her job is to exercise.
So therefore, if they couldn't convince her, then she can say no government. So like imagine that those three right heads were together, and I don't know how exactly it would work, but Winston was kind of like, she'll be right, and the Governor-General wasn't convinced, then she has the ability to say this is not a government, which I don't think again will ever happen, but it's interesting to hear the role that the head of state's representative plays in our election.
Exercise the discretion at that point and say, I have sufficient evidence that they do have the confidence of Parliament, i.e. the MPs, and therefore I'm saying you as the leader of this coalition
you can get across the line.
Will become Prime Minister, so and you will form a government.
You'd need Winnie and David and Chris in the back of a taxi up to...
Well, of course, there might be a grand coalition. I mean, there are all sorts of possibilities. But the important point is this. If politicians think that we're going to another election, they should think very hard about why we've never been in this situation again. I don't think any elector will thank them, but I think they will punish them.
Yeah, I don't
do this again.
I don't think anyone was
My
actually
easy vote
seriously
card has just
entertaining that.
arrived. That's a shame because I voted last weekend, but they finally found my house.
What are we, 2 days out from election day?
It's all right.
It's not the end of the world, is it? If there was some major constitutional or significant government decision that had to be made, like a lockdown or something to do with the military, if our politicians couldn't agree, who is technically in charge?
So what happens in that case is that we have a caretaker government. So whoever's the incumbent is the caretaker. So that's Chris Hipkins and his team. But he should consult.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if no one can agree, it's his decision.
It is his decision.
Yeah.
And remember also that we've had the situation before. We had a situation where Muldoon came, he was on his way out. You'll remember the Longi government came in. They said do X, he said no. And now, of course, we've amended our Constitution Act so that if within a certain number of days, you are going to become a Member of Parliament, then you can be sworn in as a minister and go in and do it yourself.
So there you go. So the one thing that I took away from this is when people keep saying, who will be the Prime Minister on Sunday morning? The answer is Chris Hipkins will be the Prime Minister on Sunday morning because they won't have formed a government. So he will technically be, if the right were to win, they will technically be a government in waiting, if you will. And he will be the caretaker
I
Prime
did
Minister.
laugh at that. I saw a promo for TVNZ Sunday morning. We'll have a new leader on Sunday, and it's like, no, you won't. There's almost no chance of that happening.
five. Mai Chen says 5 weeks is a pretty standard time because, and like especially with the 25th of November being the date for that by-election, if National and ACT are on 60 seats, which I don't think they will be, but if they are, then they'll just be hankering out to win that. I mean, it seems to be a pretty safe National seat, but I wonder if that's going to turn into a massive fight. Old Jacinda comes back and runs in Port Waikato or something like that. I don't know.
And just remember, if there's no government formed in 7 weeks, then under our constitution, the power passes to regional warlords.
Yep. We're the ones for Dunedin. Just so you know.
Just so you know. Just so you know. Yeah.
And we can finally get that grift that everyone keeps accusing us of and have our palms greased by some people.